Thanks for that hint, honey bun. I'm good. No, I'll probably bear it. Yeah, it's a little bit different now because we're going to be doing this mics on. Yeah. Hey, Al, it's Gary. If you're talking, I can't hear you.
I'm probably better now, Mike. Sorry, folks. I was talking to dead air because they did not have my mic open, but that's the beauty of a live presentation. But thanks for joining us this morning. Integrity is dedicated to making sure that we have solutions in place on the mainframe that save time and effort by reducing manual processes, and at the same time allows us to have better cybersecurity and compliance than we've ever had in the world before. So, with not much more ado, I'm going to introduce my partner Gary Euler, who will lead us through some of the slides, and we'll cooperate on exactly how this solution can save you time and effort in your everyday life. In the next 40 minutes, we're going to go over the Maintegrity tool set, a little bit about Maintegrity, a little bit about why we're here, jump right into some specific solutions that save you time and money. And then we're going to go back and talk a little bit about how FIM allows us to do that. Then we'll talk a little bit about compliance and then move on to what you can do right now. About Maintegrity. We were founded in 2017 and in the last 5 years have revolutionized the security and compliance world for mainframes. We are veteran enterprise innovators. For 30 years, we've been working in this space to improve mainframes and, as we see it, making them the most secure and best connected platform on earth. And we do that specifically with two products, FIM Plus, which is our cybersecurity and compliance product, and Gateways OS, which is a multi-platform connectivity program that allows FIM Plus to dynamically reach out to open systems, cloud services, other services that are available in the enterprise, and make use of that information in a dynamic manner in order to make automated decisions in a more organized manner. While we're doing this, we deliver you less. We deliver you less risk, we deliver you less effort, and we deliver you less cost. Hopefully, we'll be able to show that more clearly as we move forward. Today, we need interfaces that the new generation can deal with, and we'll show you a little bit about that too. But right now, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Gary, and he's going to lead you through the SOX compliance environment.
Thanks, Al. Sarbanes-Oxley's been around since 2002 and was a direct result of the Enron scandal. To be honest, we did not even contemplate SOX as it is commonly referred to when we were building FIM Plus. However, we have had clients tell us what they are doing to ensure SOX compliance, so we decided it was worth spending a little time and energy on sharing what's going on and how we can help. SOX applies to publicly traded U.S. companies and U.S. subsidiaries of foreign-owned companies, foreign-owned from the perspective of the U.S. Its purpose is to eliminate fraud. Private companies generally do not have to comply with all of the SOX regulations, but they can still get penalized under SOX if they commit fraud. SOX forces companies to be very diligent in their record keeping. Penalties for violating SOX rules are criminal in nature and can result in prison sentences of up to 25 years. And since senior executives are the people who sign off on the financials and they are the ones subject to the penalties, SOX compliance is widely implemented. SOX requires proof that all changes to processes are approved and that records are kept detailing this. Separation of duties has to be implemented so that no one person can make changes on their own, and audit trails need to be kept and variances get reported. Complying with SOX can be labor intensive and expensive, not to mention mind-numbingly boring. You can go ahead and click there, Al. By the way, for all you people on there, normally we're a milli vanilli. We have these things pre-recorded, but we couldn't find the recording this morning. So anyway, so we're doing it manually. So I have to tell Al when to click and stuff, just so you know. For us, SOX was 20 years old and a long ways in the rearview mirror. However, a client related to us what they were doing. And it really struck a chord. Now, this is an international company that has a U.S. subsidiary. It's not clear to us if this type of effort is common for SOX or if the work they were doing was due to their auditor's interpretation. But this is what they were doing. They manually extracted all of the SMF update records. They then took these change records and manually correlated them to a change request in ServiceNow. This correlation included an assessment on whether or not the change was legitimate. This work is tedious and cries out for automation. Of course, any SMF update records that didn't correspond to a change request had to be chased down and resolved. This was a significant amount of work, and here's how FIM Plus was able to help. FIM Plus has access to SMF and ServiceNow. Whenever FIM Plus detects a change, it will check in ServiceNow or BMC's Helix ITSM for that matter, to see if a change request corresponds to that change. We also developed a little report that shows this correlation that can be automatically emailed to auditors on a regular basis. The result was a significant savings in manual effort for the company's IT SOX compliant process and was a home run for the IT department. With FIM Plus, they were able to automate the entire correlation process except where a change occurred that couldn't be related automatically to a change request. You've been flipping around there, Al. I think you need to go to that one. Okay. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and level set you about what FIM technology is and what FIM Plus in particular does. If some of you are familiar with Tripwire on other platforms, FIM Plus does very similar things as Tripwire, although on a ZOS platform or ZOS if you're American. FIM technology is used to validate that files in your site remain in a trusted state. It's mainly used for static files like executables, proc libs, parm libs, source code, that kind of thing. On the Z platform, FIM Plus also supports USS files. It reads files and creates a hash key from the contents of the files and stores those keys in a vault. These keys are the baseline set of keys. Okay, give her a click, Al. Scans are rerun on a regular basis, and the keys are compared to the keys stored in the vault. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not
Want me
doing
to
its
go
thing.
forward there? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
It's not doing what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, yeah.
If the keys match, all OK records are written to the FIM log, and this information can also be put into a SIEM product like Splunk, QRadar, or BMC's AMI product. Scans continue along, and then a change is detected. What happens then is the information is logged and an event is generated. The event process in FIM Plus is quite powerful. Typically, an event will cause a set of actions to be undertaken, which are user defined, and one of which is generally an email or text message that gets sent to a responsible party. We're going to go into this in greater detail further on in the presentation, but it's important to note that this will uncover all changes, including unauthorized ones. When coupled with our capability to verify whether a change request is authorized in your change system, this is a very powerful tool which both protects you and avoids the work needed to chase down any changes that were in fact authorized through your change process. The other thing worth noting is that all of this capability requires no changes to user processes or applications. Here's a pictorial, give her a click, Elle.
Yeah.
Here's a pictorial representation of how all this works. What we did first of all was scan all of the production files. When changes were detected, and believe me, they will be detected, FIM Plus accesses ServiceNow and sees if a change request corresponds to the change that was detected. If a change record is found, we note it and continue. When a change is detected that doesn't have a corresponding change request, FIM Plus sends an alert to the SOX team. On a regular basis, a report is produced that correlates the changes detected along with the change request that approved the change. In the case where there is no change request, a report indicating these along with how the event was resolved can be automatically produced. You may be wondering how FIM Plus can tell what change request applies to which change. You do need to set this up. Within FIM Plus, files to be scanned are placed into bundles we call resource sets or into bundles we call applications. The names of the resource set or application will need to be reflected in the ServiceNow change request. What this shows is the value that FIM Plus can provide that is beyond what you think of when you think of file integrity monitoring. This value comes from the ability to detect events and take actions based on those events and on the ability to connect and query other tools in your ecosystem. Although this example uses ServiceNow, FIM Plus can connect to other platforms, and we'll go to this a little later on out of the box. The results slide, here we are. In this example, our automatic correlation wound up correlating about 98% of the changes to a change request. That's quite high. Now, this level of correlation wasn't accomplished overnight. With the remaining changes which had no change request, these were able to be investigated with the automated forensics provided by FIM Plus. Further, FIM Plus provides the ability to describe the resolution of the event, along with a flag indicating whether the event is resolved or still open. This resulted in significantly less manual effort to meet the SOX requirement and was a real feather in the cap of the IT department. The screen at the bottom of the page is the sample of the SOX requirement report, SOX compliance report. This report can be automatically produced and emailed to relevant personnel on a regular basis. Now, Al is going to take you through a similar exercise for PCI compliance.
Thanks, Gary. Just before we leave this topic, though, I think the important thing that Gary's brought forward is the automation that the ServiceNow and BMC Helix gateways can provide for this type of function. This was a team of 5 people and annual audits of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when you look at the numbers involved here, reduction of items that had to be looked at manually by 97%, you can imagine that there was a lot more productive work that those people are currently involved in. So with that, I'm going to make a move, and we're going to talk a little bit about PCI and DSS. The payment card industry has been around for quite a while. It's backed by MasterCard, Visa, Amex, and all of the major banks and financial infrastructures pretty much in the world. So it's a worldwide standard, currently implemented at the 3.2.1 level and expected to be version 4 at the end of 2022. The point is to harden security and then improve compliance. So with FIM Plus, we do continuous monitoring. File integrity monitoring, FIM, is required to meet the 3.2.1 current standard and will be tightened further in version 4 is the expectation. There are 32 specific controls, and we help you with all of them. But frankly, if you don't have FIM in place, and almost no one does on the mainframe, then you're not compliant. The problem with that is if you say, yeah, we don't know of any problems where we would violate the PCI environment, and we have, somewhat questionable compensating controls implemented somewhere in your organization, one of the chief executive officers or your CFO or your CIO or somebody really important is going to have to sign off that all 32 compliance controls are in place and are executed correctly. So there's no wiggle room in here. So it is really, really important that you have FIM in place. But, that was further highlighted by one of the recent attacks last year called the cash out threat. PCI saw fit and to issue a bulletin. It doesn't happen very often, but this was a severe problem. Multiple banks had been attacked. Unlimited ATM withdrawals were perpetrated. What had happened is they'd altered the fraud control parameters internally. Now, most ATMs still hang off a mainframe using IMS FastPath as much as anything. So this is really focused on mainframes and the risks that they have. But it takes knowledge and coordination. So the thinking around this attack was that it was an inside job, but it takes a lot of coordination. These days, hackers are after money. They are patient. They are well-funded. This is a business. So what did PCI recommend? 724 integrity monitoring. Okay, so simply put, file integrity monitoring, running continuously, checking to make sure that nothing like the fraud control parameters had been altered. They also recommended that you improve your detection and response processes. FIM Plus gives you the capability to do that without any extra work. So while we're looking at this, we're really trying to make FIM Plus earn its keep every day and make sure that people don't have to do redundant, boring activities and increase cost and effort in the process. And they also said strict responsibility, um, separation of roles, so that there couldn't be an inside job. We also have that implemented in the update side of FIM Plus, so we can ensure that different people have different roles and can cross-check the work done. In this example, we really look at sections 10.5 and 11.5 that specifically call for FIM processing in every computing environment that deals with credit card or debit information. So in this particular case, a large transportation company used credit cards, not too surprising, and they needed to be compliant. They were also aware that version 4 would tighten the DSS controls. So they were very concerned that they had a proper solution in place. We put FIM Plus in place for them. We went through the trial process. It discovered the system environment and the application environment required. In the first 2 weeks, the estimated saving was one full-time person that used to develop the reports that we'll see in a second in a manual manner to be fully compliant with PCI. Also, FIM Plus has an easy-to-use browser interface. So auditors at audit time could go in and verify the results up to the minute on demand. That also was a major financial saving because somebody didn't have to scurry around trying to fulfill the auditor's requests every time they wanted to see something. Reliability and auditability were much improved. So there were a lot of things that got better, but in the long run, FIM Plus paid for itself in the first couple of weeks because there was so much less work required. So in the area of automation, we look at the proof of compliance, and that's important because in PCI, not only do you have to be compliant, you have to prove it, and you have to prove it on a regular basis. They recommend weekly. We recommend daily, but it doesn't really matter. If it's done automatically, you could do it hourly. In our particular case, we have this PCI audit report that's produced automatically for you, and it will identify everything that's significant in terms of PCI compliance. When it comes to audit time, we have this beautiful browser view, which is easy enough for anybody to understand. Things that are in green mean everything's fine. Things that are in red mean somebody better investigate this. I click on this little eyeball in here. I get a great big expansion of everything that's in here. It's a dynamic view of your PCI compliance environment up to the second. So there are lots of other things in the compliance world that require effort. So we talked a little bit about PCI, DSS, and SOX, but what about the NIST protocols? Well, FIM Plus also implements the entire framework, augments the entire framework of NIST protocol. So if you're regulated by HIPAA or FSMA, the cost of doing that compliance work can be slashed in the same manner by using FIM Plus to track all authorized changes and make it easier to investigate and reconcile those that wouldn't be automatically identified. So again, we're probably looking at 2, 3, 4, 5% that need to be investigated instead of 100%. That's a major saving. The same sort of gateway that allows us to go to ServiceNow or BMC Helix for this kind of information is very important in all the compliance reporting that we do, whether it's NIST, whether it's SOX, whether it's PCI. For our people that are regulated and doing business in Europe, GDPR is really important. They kind of exist by saying you should be compliant with the other standards. So it's non-specific in terms of controls. But if your other controls are in great place, you can avoid some pretty big fines that have been laid on British Airways and Marriott and Google and all kinds of other folks in this environment. So what we say is with FIM Plus, your compliance should go up, your administrative effort should go down, and your audit costs should go down. So with that, Gary, I think we'll move right into the next section of things here, and you can take folks through the file integrity monitoring piece.
Okay, thanks. So,
Is that good for you, Gary?
can you hear me? Yeah, I
Yep.
think so. Yeah. Yeah, I've lost a little bit of what order these slides are coming up in, so it's a little bit of a mystery. But anyway, I definitely think I can talk through this one. We've already talked a little bit about what file integrity monitoring is earlier in the presentation, but here's a little bit more detail on what we do. We're also going to show how file integrity monitoring can save significant time and effort in a breach situation. Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the new file activity monitoring features we've implemented, along with a snap set selection process. FIM Plus monitors the integrities of files and applications and can verify the contents of all of your critical systems. During the first scan of the file, we create a hash key from the contents of the file and the metadata for the file and store these keys in our vault. We log that this information has been created and can optionally send that to a scene product. This should all be review kind of. In subsequent scans, we recreate the keys, compare them to keys stored in the vault, and if they match, simply log that information. Give her a click, Al. If they do not match, I think that's one more click.
Yep.
Okay,
Sorry.
there we go. An event is triggered. We can email or text a responsible person that a mismatch on the keys has occurred. Within that email or text, there will be a link to our browser interface. Clicking on the link will put you right into the record containing the forensic information for the mismatched scan. Give her a click there, Al.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
There we go. Off the bat, because we know when the last good scan was, we know the interval that when this change occurred and which files and members actually changed. If you click it again now. FIM will pull in the SMF records pertaining to this change and display the information in the browser as well. This will give you the user that made the change and the exact time the change was made. Give her another click, Al. If you have a change management tool like ServiceNow or Remedy, FIM Plus can access these and pull in any change requests that appear to be relevant. You then can click on the record and see if the change request does indeed match what you see that has changed. Give her a click, Al. If the uh, file is a text-based file, you can evoke a compare program which shows the baseline source and the change source side by side. The changes will be highlighted in green in the baseline version and red in the change version. In addition, you can have FIM Plus open a trouble ticket representing this incident. One of the things that comes up fairly often when we're talking about FIM Plus is the number of false positives the FIM Plus system will generate. My definition of a false positive is a change that was expected to be made that got detected by FIM Plus and security personnel get notified. The security personnel will then have to chase down the change and make sure everything is on the up and up. We're not going to go into how it is done here, but FIM Plus integrates seamlessly into your change process and can be implemented so you cannot get a false positive. You'll just have to take my word on that for today, though. Give her a click, Al.
And surely anything that anybody wants to follow up on, like the discussion about zero false positives, we'd be happy to have a subsequent call on.
Um, like we talked before, the event management process that comes with FIM Plus is quite powerful. FIM Plus can be set up to do things like suspend a user ID that is acting suspiciously or quarantine a file that appears to be maliciously modified. But the real important thing is to get your systems back as quickly as possible to an operational state. This is where FIM Plus can really save you time and effort in a stressful situation. Some of you may remember the widely reported Equifax breach a number of years ago. During that breach, it took them 6 weeks to understand everything that had changed. With FIM Plus, there's a report which we call the oversight report, which can give you all the changes that's occurred in the previous X number of days. This provides immediate insight into what needs to be restored. So now you know what has changed. You need to restore this. FIM Plus contains a recovery assistant. What this feature does is take recovery JCL and tailor it with the names of the files and members that need to be restored. After the restore is complete, you can easily verify that what you have recovered is correct by scanning the recovered file and make sure the hash codes match the ones in the trust vault. This is done with a simple job step in the tailored recovery JCL. Give her a click here, Al. The bottom line here is, how long does it take you to react to an attack? In the classic response, you hope your backups are okay and you hope all of your components haven't been maliciously altered, but you don't really know. You're kind of flying a little bit blind. With FIM Plus, you do know if things have been altered. They either match or they don't. You also know if someone has been poking around in places they shouldn't, or if someone has opened a file they perhaps shouldn't have. This is a real leg up in your ransomware defense. But savings and effort during the analysis and recovery phase of an attack response is where some of the real value accrues. Using automated forensics, you have answers instead of questions right off the bat. Compared with classic responses of getting all the experts together and a lot of manual effort, it's like moving at light speed. Some security tools only report suspicious activity. FIM Plus delivers clear corroborating evidence that can eliminate many false positives raised by these tools. By combining information from complementary sources, you can high grade your alerts, detecting threats that bypass traditional defenses, but also validating that alerts raised are real. Now, whether you're a veteran security expert or someone relatively new to mainframes, you can make the right decisions based on rock solid, validated information. I like to say knowledge plus action equals avoidance, not disaster. I think we give her a click, Al.
Okay. Yeah. And that takes us right into the activity monitoring. So carry on, Garrett.
A couple of years ago, when it became clear that ransomware attacks often started with the hackers compromising backups, we added a feature to FIM Plus which enabled users to detect whenever someone opened a backup file and generate an alert. We've since expanded this activity monitoring to cover all kinds of files, including vSAM files. This has moved FIM Plus beyond monitoring static files like load lives to be able to provide an alert when somebody opens, for instance, a DB2 database or an IMS database who shouldn't. Because the actions that can be taken include revoking a user ID, this provides some real defense against hackers who have legitimate credentials. Give her a click. My notes say to give her a click. Oh, that's wrong. Maybe that's wrong. Go back. Can you go back, Al?
I can.
I think these are old notes. Sorry about that. We've also added the capability to generate an alert if a user ID all of a sudden starts to poke around in a bunch of places that aren't normal for that user, or if all of a sudden someone starts poking around your Parm Lives, your backup files, etc. FIM Plus will generate an alert. We also facilitate the establishment and monitoring of decoy or honeypot data sets. With these types of files, you allocate them with intriguing names and wait for someone to come along and snoop into them. And when they do, you've caught them red handed. All of these types of monitoring, which are beyond what we normally think of as file integrity monitoring, they can be really useful in detecting bad actors in a ransomware situation. And if your organization is implementing zero trust, and I'm talking about enterprise zero trust, not just network zero trust, these features are a valuable step in the right direction. Now I think if I need to get to the immutable backup piece, Al. I don't know if you click it. What? Oh, there you go. Okay, actually, that's right. Some of you may have immutable backups or snapsets that are being created by your disk hardware. These are very useful things to have, but the problem is deciding which snapset to recover from when you need to do a restore. Don't forget the bad guys can do all kinds of nasty things. They can implement time bombs, which can go off in the future. They can have set up additional backdoors as a way in to re-encrypt your database should you recover from the initial attack, that kind of thing. Understanding which snapshot is clean and should be used for restore can be a real challenge. Earlier, we spoke about activity monitoring. Activity monitoring coupled with integrity monitoring can give you solid evidence regarding when an attack was initiated. The date and time of the attack provides valuable insight into which snapshot to restore from. Maintegrity in cooperation with Dell EMC has implemented snapshot selection lists for their ZDP system, which indicates which snapshots you should restore from a browser interface. Currently, the list recommends which snapshots to use based on the information we have gleaned from integrity monitoring and activity monitoring, and it shows potentially malicious activity. When you couple activity monitoring with integrity monitoring, FIM Plus is a real ally in your defense against ransomware attacks. And then when you add in the ability to provide knowledge about everything that's changed and a path to restore, well, we think it really becomes invaluable. And that's the end of that one, Al.
Okay. I'm going to add one small note though, on Gary, on immutable backups. Immutable backups are really valuable. You know, we certainly sense the fact that people are looking for backup information, but to have them stored in a manner that they can't be overwritten is highly valuable. However, it's not the panacea. Yes, we can certainly go in, select the right snapshot to recover, get you to the right level of the database. But if you don't know the other components that have been compromised and don't have a good way to restore those other components, you recover your database. Well, then the hackers simply go in with a different backdoor that they've probably very thoughtfully put in before they attacked you, and simply encrypt your database again. So, I mean, it is ultra important that you have immutable backups. It is also ultra important that once there has been some type of successful attack, you make sure that you restore everything associated with it, not just the active data. So it's really a two-part or multi-part solution, and FIM Plus really brings that to the table in an automated manner. So Garrett, back to you. Sorry, bud.
Is this my slide?
Uh,
I
oh,
can't.
okay. Sorry, but you're right. Not back to you. It's back to me.
Okay, you're
So,
on.
so the detected issues. That's a very important part of FIM Plus. It brings the security landscape together. We know when things were last seen correct. That's what the regular scanning tells you. We know when your trusted environment last existed. And that means we know the beginning of the attack interval, and that gives us the ability to look only at the period of time when the hackers were active in your environment and recover to the most recent possible date. So it also, as Gary mentioned, identifies every component that changed. It gives us the ability to say there are components that are allowed to update files and make changes in your production environment. FIM Plus builds those whitelists automatically and uses them uh, over time to eliminate all the false positives that come around. So the false positive management is very important because you don't want people swamped with situations that aren't a problem. Almost every product produces some false positives, but not with FIM Plus because we're looking at the contents of the files and verifying that they're in their trusted state. So integration with ServiceNow and BMC Helix, very important. That gives us the ability to know whether a change was authorized or unauthorized. That's pretty much unique in the mainframe marketplace. Same thing with browser automated forensics. I can get at and resolve the problems faster with an automated interface that helps me find out the required information. And then we really get down to what brought us to this meeting, which is how do we save effort? And we do that primarily on the compliance side, but also very much on the security administration side, because all this faster response and authorized versus unauthorized knowledge really eliminates all kinds of false positives created by other tools, not FIM Plus. But the same tools allow you to react very quickly. And now we can really talk about the mainframe being the center of an enterprise solution because it interoperates with things in the cloud and it gives you the capability to recover in a modern manner. But I'm going to go back and talk a little bit more about um, the arithmetic behind bringing FIM Plus in, because that's what we wanted to talk about this morning. So in your current environment, as new requirements come along, there's more work to do. In fact, there's probably more time going into it, there's more costs associated with it, and there's more errors associated with it. They come from a whole bunch of sources. But every time management gets a new idea or an auditor has a new request, that means there's more work for rank and file um, uh, systems programmers and security support staff to do. This linear relationship just isn't going to change unless you change it. So if you think there are less requirements, new requirements coming along, well, I'd be surprised at that. I hear every day about new standards and new enforcements and new reporting, and that costs more and more and more money. So we're talking about trying to break that linear relationship with automation, because that's the only way that can possibly exist. So in this particular case, we're saying your organization's over here. Well, if you want costs to go over here, we'll just keep doing it the same old way. But if you want to bring the costs down, then you're going to have to be able to do that by changing the way that you're doing your security environment. You need tools to do the detection for you. You need tools that don't need a whole bunch of updating. So continuous discovery, where you go out and find out what the changes are and automatically check them to see if they're authorized or not, serves two purposes. One, your deployments will go more smoothly because you can run that within the change window. And you'll know long before Monday morning when you have to go live that everything got there. And the second thing is that all of that continuous discovery unearths every change that took place, but it also allows you to automatically decide whether those were approved or not. So overall, we get fewer false positives in your entire environment. So we're saying FAM Plus creates zero false positives. But in actual fact, because of the tools and the cross information that you have, it eliminates false positives coming from other tools. All that saves money. The forensics and recovery. We go get the relevant SMF records. We don't have to go back to the beginning of time, really, in a Splunk or an SIEM environment, and look at everything that happened and look at millions and millions of records. We know the components that got changed, and we know the time in which the attack took place. We put those two things together. We take the millions of records, and we probably get dozens that we have to look at. But that's so much faster than trying to bring all that information together in one place and then look at it in a manual process. So browser support, we're talking about information presented for a new generation. And for all the existing systems programming folks that love the 3270 green screen, we have a 3270 green screen. But we find that when we go in our customer environment, even the down and dirty long haul systems programmers, once they see the browser and what it can do for them, they kind of go, oh, well, why am I bothering with the 3270 interface? But you can work at it however you want. And then, of course, the restore assistant. Go get the right snap sets, go get the jobs assembled to do the restore function, and execute those quickly, saving time. PCI improvements. I don't think I have to go into this anymore. We talked about how PCI is getting more stringent. There are more rules. So we need the automated reporting. We need the savings in time and effort on the audit side. And we need to be able to meet the requirement of PCI overall, which is to have file integrity monitoring, period. SOX, Gary went through that in detail, but we can produce the unauthorized change report automatically using our gateway to ServiceNow and BMC Helix. We can drive major savings through the audit process by making that a self-service environment where the auditor can go and look at what they want. And all of that results in potentially huge savings for if you're involved in SOX reporting. And everybody living in the US probably pretty much is. So what are we really trying to say here? We haven't even touched on the savings for NIST and HIPAA and FACEMA, but they're there as well. What we're trying to say is all of these things add up, and they put you in a very sweet spot, which is you can go to management and you can say, I'm going to deliver you better security and better compliance, but I'm also going to deliver that with less risk, less cost, and less effort. So you can pay for the cost of FIM Plus and save money at the bottom line in the environment and save everybody's time and give people the opportunity to have a much more fulfilling career with much more interesting work to do than filing day by day reports on compliance. So, I mean, at that point, I'm just really going to say there is a cumulative effect on this. If you clearly you will have security functions that become easier. Clearly, you have a forensics process, which in the hands of a qualified and experienced mainframe professional can be executed pretty quickly and probably, lots of batch jobs that do some parts of that for you. But as we look forward to a changing uh, career environment, the aspirations of those folks, they won't necessarily want to work in the same way. So those forensics make it easier for people to get the job done in an organized manner. And then we start adding on the savings for PCI or SOX or NIST compliance. We can really get to a very significant change in the overall amount of effort to have a highly secure and highly connected mainframe being sort of the center of your enterprise tools. So we also think it's important to get these younger people in and delegate them delegate them responsibilities so that they can be productive more quickly. But at the end of the day, we want to break the linear relationship between more requests for information and more knowledge about security and more audit requirements and more compliance. We want to break that linear relationship between that and more manual effort to get there. So we think we can improve the quality of all that reporting with so much less effort. And with that, we're going to kind of open things up to questions. But just before I do that, I really want to go, yeah, we've probably all been complaining about being overworked and new requirements for a long time, but maybe it's time to start doing something about that. So I would point you to our website, which has lots of videos. A lot of them are kind of 5-minute explainers, and they talk to a variety of specific functions, or you can call Gary and I. I mean, we have a number of different experts that you might want to talk to at Maintegrity, but if you want to talk about a specific problem you have, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. Of course, we would be happy also to schedule a follow-on conversation and do a deeper dive into all the functions that we covered today. But a lot of times we find that a customer just wants to do a trial. They want to get their hands on the product. They want to see how it runs. And one of the first things that they run into is, wow, this auto discovery works really good. I've got a whitelist of all the things that are allowed to run on my mainframe I've never had in all the years that I've worked here. And that provides me so much security without any effort because the system does all that auto discovery for you. You don't need any new hardware because our browser runs directly on the mainframe. So you're not exposed to the Apache or the Log4j problem. A highly secure environment to bring in and no extra hardware. So we also tell you clearly that we have no open source in our ZOS environment. We have always said the best way to arm a hacker is to make your source available. We run everything on ZOS, and our source has never been exposed on the internet, and it's not going to be. So we think that this is a terrific opportunity for you to prove to yourself that it does wonders for you. And for everybody that has brought it in on trial, our success rate on those trials is very high, and it's relatively simple to conduct one. We like to say, you should install it in the morning, and you should get worthwhile results, including whitelists and reports that afternoon. So we would ask you, what's holding you back? We're here to help you. Let's try and make your life easier. Let's do something this year to make sure you're not overworked this year. And with that, I'll kind of
Yeah,
wrap up and we'll go to questions.
yeah. Well, I got some questions that came in, so I'll take this first one. If FIM Plus continuously scans mainframe files, will that induce a surge in mainframe CPU usage? And the answer is yes, but let me just explain this a little bit. So, all of the hashing occurs on your crypto card, so that won't be reflected in normal CPU time. The other thing that we've done in FIM Plus is we have a multi-part key. Part of the key is based on the metadata of the file, and part of the key is based on the contents of the file. We have two kinds of scans. We call one a quick scan, and what it does is recreate the metadata of the file and compare that portion of the key to the metadata of the file from that was created originally. And that runs very, very quickly. The metadata is small. Um, Full scans take a little longer. You do have to read all of the contents of the file to recreate the key. However, what most people do is they do a full scan periodically, like in a low CPU utilization time, and they do full quick scans periodically throughout the day. So it minimizes the impact on your overall CPU usage. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Gary. I mean, if we do full scan, when we do full scans, we usually say, do them at some period of time
Yeah.
where there's going to be zero impact.
One
But
one thing I want to add though, just so you know, uh, f- uh, metadata, the quick scan will catch almost any kind of a change that's made. In the case of PDSEs, it'll catch all changes that are made to PDSEs, even things that are done using update in place, things like Super Zap or TSO test or that kind of thing. So in PDSs, you do need to do full scans periodically, but PDSEs, you don't even, I mean, a quick scan should catch everything that occurs in a PDSE, just so you know. Then there's a question here. Any statistics on the threat of cybersecurity issues on the mainframe platform? Um, just so there recently was a phishing thing that went on a mainframe, and what happened was a systems programmer got a invitation from a obviously a malicious headhunter offering him a position at twice his salary as long as he filled out this application. And of course, as soon as he filled out the application, a keystroke kind of capture program got put onto his PC, and they got into the mainframe. Now, they did not. They started to encrypt stuff and got caught. So it didn't. They wound up not causing any damage. But what that does illustrate is that mainframes are just as vulnerable as any other platform. I think that I do think that because the knowledge of how the platform works is less widely known, I think there is a little bit of protection coming from security by obscurity, but sooner or later, I mean, the trouble is that it's hard to predict. And so I don't have any stats. I just know that it has happened. And the other thing that happens, if somebody gets hacked and you don't lose any personal information, you don't have to make it public. And so I think that there's been hacks that have occurred that haven't been made public, and we have anecdotally heard of them, but so I don't have any hard and fast statistics.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that there really are any real firm statistics on that, but there is no doubt that customers of ours have told us that they have been that customers outboard of them have been hacked, and the mainframe has been just as susceptible as other platforms. And in fact, because of the state of security software in mainframes generally, I would say they're even more open than a lot of the open system stuff. So anyway, any other questions there, Gary?
Yeah, yeah. So here's one that says, "Do your customers really save money with FIM Plus?" And we went through some real world examples here. I don't know. Do you want to add anything to that? I mean, um,
I
they
I don't
certainly
really.
save effort. Do they save money? Saving money, it's saving effort, and we don't. I mean, it's the old thing. You start converting into saving money, that means somebody lost their job. I don't know if that's ever happened.
Well, I would be willing to say, uh, let's sit together and build a business case. I think there's a really solid business case in lots of places, but what we can't do for you is say what your current expenses are. But I can guarantee you that the amount of effort that you're putting in today, assuming you're compliant, can be dramatically reduced. And even on the security side of things, security administration, because some of these functions are automated, you can just carry on so much more work with the existing staff. In the mainframe world, we're all kind of worried about all of the really qualified, knowledgeable people retiring. So you've got to have a way to transition to the next generation as well. So we're not trying to solve a single problem, but if a business case that says I'm going to save money by bringing this product in, if that is important in bringing the product in, I would be happy to work on that with you.
Okay. Here's another one now. I have immutable backups now. Why do I care about detecting attacks? That's an interesting question.
Uh,
I
okay,
think
I,
you, I
I
think
think
you, I
I
think you
hit on
care. You always care about detecting an attack, don't you? I mean,
I,
anyway.
I think I hit on that to some extent. I mean, in a nutshell, um, your immutable backups will be terrific, but if an attacker broke in and compromised one of your databases, let's say it's your RACF database, which is going to be on linear vSAN very quickly, so you better be looking at that stuff in addition to just monitoring the access via RACF, but fix TB2 and IMS and all the rest of them. But if they can get in and encrypt your database once, do you think before they do that they're only going to they're only going to break in and encrypt your database and then you restore your database and your life's okay? Well, no. These guys are state sponsored now. They've got deep pockets. They've got lots of time. They have one thing you absolutely can guarantee is they have plenty of patience. They're going to make sure they got 20 different backdoors, just like the SolarWinds attack. Nobody even knows how many backdoors they have because they didn't have a baseline that told them what the trusted level was. So they can't even tell, how many issues there are there. So if you want to be exposed to that, and you want to be exposed to repeated encryptions or repeated ransomware attacks, immutable backups are absolutely critical in being able to do any level of restore. But if they just re-encrypt you, like, how much farther ahead are you? Anything
Yeah.
else, Gar?
Well, I was just having a thought um, about what Dell approached us about. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about that or not, but anyways, we have been working with Dell EMC to produce some stuff on that allows us to tell you. When we talked about this in the presentation, so I think it's fine. Now, if you look at what Dell EMC does on non Z platforms, they have partnered with another company whose name I cannot remember.
CyberSense.
CyberSense and what CyberSense does, they do some interesting mathematical stuff, but they determine how much data has changed between snapsets. Is that what they do for them? Right.
Not exactly, and we don't
So,
have to really go
anyway,
into
but anyway,
CyberSense.
but anyway, we're going to be doing similar things for Dell on the Z platform that CyberSense does on the non-Z platform, and so Dell recognized that having a kabillion immutable backups doesn't really help you when you go to do a restore. You have to understand which one you need to restore from, and so they've worked with this CyberSense company on the non-Z platforms. They're working with us on the Z platforms, and so that's kind of what's going on there.
So,
So there's definitely some value in understanding when an attack occurred for sure. Anyway, okay.
so
And
if that wraps up the questions, Garrett, I
there's
would
one
just.
more, but it's about
Oh,
false positives. It's just a quick one about somebody says they're putting a new version of ZOS in. How many false
oh,
positives are they going to get?
yep.
And yeah, there is some integration work, but just so you know quickly, we have three different methods where you can avoid false positives, and if you implement any one of them, you will not get a false positive. We'll update the keys before anything happens where you get a bunch of false positives you have to chase down. Just so you know.
You know,
Anyway, that's a quick
Garrett,
answer, but
that was a really good question though, because I think there's lots of people in the audience that are thinking about the ZOS change from 2.4 to 2.5, or maybe even 3 to 5. But I, we understand, FIM Plus understands versions, and that's really important. So there'll be a baseline for version 2.4, and there will be another one for 2.5. So if we know we're looking at the 2.4 system, then we'll compare against our 2.4 baseline, and everything should match.
yeah,
And
just one thing in there. That's an important point. Is you can in a multi-LPAR environment, you can have different versions running on different LPARs and be scanning them, and we'll make sure that we're scanning the correct version. Just so you know, so
yeah, so
it's
that's
all looked after. The system was designed to work in a modern, large multi-LPAR environment. Just so you know.
so so we know whether we're supposed to be looking at a 2.5 system and 2.4 system, and that just means no false positives. So you want to have a longer discussion about the other things that we can do in that environment, we're happy to talk about that. But you've got our phone numbers there on the screen. You know where to send me an email, even easier. If you want to start a trial or you want to have a follow-on conversation, please just reach out, and we'll just talk about it. All right, Garrett. With
Yeah, thanks
if
for
we're all
attending, you
done and the
guys.
questions are done,
Thanks for
I would
attending.
just like to say pass on my thanks as well, and I look forward to talking to many of you.